we are spending all of this money on space exploration when we've barely begun to explore our very own planet. We are an ocean planet. Our existence depends on the ocean, and yet we hardly understand anything about it at all. We have explored such a tiny, tiny part of the ocean. Probably 20%, approaching 30% of the bottom of the ocean has been mapped, but at a very low resolution of about 100 meters. But if you're talking about actually visiting the bottom of the ocean, then you're talking about 0.05%, which is incredibly small. I'm Edith Widder. I am a deep sea biologist and more recently an ocean conservationist. I got an opportunity to go on an expedition that was testing a new type of diving suit. And on my first dive was to 800 feet. It was in the Santa Barbara Channel and it was late at night, and I went down and I turned out the lights and I was just blown away by all the bioluminescence I saw. It looked like a fireworks display. Flashes and glows and sparkles and spews, and it was incredible. And if I activated the thrusters that propelled the suit, I'd get vortices of neon blue light coming out with sparks mixed in that looked like when you throw a log on a campfire and the embers swirl up, only these were icy blue embers. And I thought, this has got to be one of the most important things in the ocean. I know how much energy this takes. Why aren't more people studying it? And that was it. That was the absolute turning point for me. I've been studying bioluminescence ever since. If people know about bioluminescence at all, it's usually fireflies, but in general on land it's pretty rare. It's really common in the ocean. Most of the animals in the ocean make light. And it looks like bioluminescence has evolved at least 40 separate times in evolutionary history. And when you have that kind of degree of convergent evolution, it's a clear indication of the survival value of the trait. So there's three basic functions that all animals have to have in order to survive. They have to be able to find food, and bioluminescence gets used for that. You know about the ugly angler with the glowing lure that attracts food in reach of its mouth. Or they have built-in flashlights to help them see in the dark. And then they can use bioluminescence to attract a mate using a special code or flash pattern or a specially shaped light organ. And then they use it a lot for defense, all different kinds of defense. The most common use is called counter-illumination, and it's how animals can hide in an environment where there's no hiding places. So a lot of the fish, the squid, the shrimp produce bioluminescence from their bellies that exactly matches the color and the intensity of the downwelling sunlight. And if a cloud goes over the sun and dims the sunlight, they dim their belly lights. They disappear. It's the ultimate perfect cloaking device. Then there's something called a bioluminescent burglar alarm. They use every light organ they've got to scream for help if they're caught in the clutches of a predator. It's the same reason that birds and monkeys have fear screams. It's meant to attract attention. So once you're caught, your only hope for escape is to attract the attention of something bigger that will attack your attacker and afford you an opportunity for escape. And those are some of the most spectacular bioluminescent displays of all. I wanted to know how much bioluminescence was there down there when I wasn't down there disturbing things. And that's actually a really hard question to answer, because if you lower a light detector over the side of a ship, the ship's bouncing up and down, the detector's bouncing up and down, bumping into things, causing them to flash. But I finally got to dive in a single-person submersible that I piloted that was called Deep Rover, and it was untethered. Using the Deep Rover, I could go down and go neutral and discover that there was no background light at all unless I activated it somehow. If I activated my thrusters or I moved forward, then I'd get all that flashing. But if I went dead in the water, there was nothing. So it was a minefield. And that means it's a minefield for every animal down there, and they have to negotiate that world. A world where most of the animals have eyes and are looking for any indication of where prey might be. And so that was actually something that I used when I was trying to figure out ways of attracting animals to my camera system that I wanted to leave on the bottom of the ocean, I imitated one of these burglar alarm displays that we believed were meant to attract large predators. And sure enough, 86 seconds after we turned it on for the first time, we recorded a squid over 6 feet long that was completely new to science. Couldn't even be placed in any known scientific family. There's so many of these creatures that I've observed that I want to be able to observe them in their natural habitat, doing their natural thing. So I was very interested in being able to explore the ocean in new ways because I thought we were scaring animals away. And I got invited on this expedition off Japan in 2012, and I had a new version of my camera system, which I called the Eye in the Sea. And this was a version that I could just throw off the back of the ship, and it had 750 meters of line, and at the surface was afloat with a satellite beacon. And so then we could go pick it up a day or two later and see what it had recorded. And it recorded the first video of a giant squid ever seen, which was a pretty big deal. And then that it was willing to stay around on camera for an extended period of time. It seemed more shy than like a monster. It's been depicted as a monster for so long, but that wasn't the impression at all. It was just so unexpected. We are spending all of this money on space exploration when we've barely begun to explore our very own planet. We are an ocean planet. Our existence depends on the ocean, and yet we hardly understand anything about it at all. We have explored such a tiny, tiny part of the ocean. Probably 20%, approaching 30% of the bottom of the ocean has been mapped, but at a very low resolution of about 100 meters. But if you're talking about actually visiting the bottom of the ocean, then you're talking about 0.05%, which is incredibly small. We have so many threats on the ocean right now. It's really alarming. You know, people know about global warming. The ocean is heating up, and that's having implications in just all kinds of ways. You know, it's just one thing after another, and then we do this bottom trawling where we drag nets across the bottom of the ocean with big rollers on them that cause the bottom shrimp and bottom fish to jump up into the net. But what that does is you have this undersea Garden of Eden that's just magnificent, that sustains all manner of life. And for one haul of shrimp, you wipe it out. It won't sustain life for hundreds of years. And then we're just about to start mining the bottom of the ocean, which is going to do the same kind of damage to different parts of the ocean, including the deep sea vents and other places that haven't been explored yet. So we have this history in humanity of exploring and then exploiting a place, but in the ocean we've done it backwards. We're actually exploiting it before we've even explored it. We're destroying it before we know what's down there. So actually one of my early dives was in the Gulf of Maine, which was once considered one of the richest fisheries in the world along George's Bank. And they had realized that they'd overfished it, so they stopped the overfishing, hoping that the fish would come back, but they haven't. And I could see why easily from the submersible, because there were jellyfish everywhere. So when you create a hole in an ecosystem, if you stop creating the hole, what fills it in isn't necessarily what was there before. And so all those jellyfish are consuming all of the plankton that the fish need to survive on. They're consuming the fish eggs, they're consuming the fish larvae. And so the fish aren't coming back, the jellyfish are taking over. Given the current state, there's a lot we need to be concerned about, but I think it's a mistake to just preach doom and gloom. And we are by nature explorers. That is one of our most basic parts of our DNA, and we need to tap into that. We need to let the younger generation know how much of our own planet we have yet to explore, because that's what has always been the key to our survival, is exploring the natural world to better understand how to survive in it. And we need a lot more of that going on, and so we need to excite that kind of thrill of exploration so that we can tap into that instead of the doom and gloom that just wants to make people cover their ears and close their eyes.